Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul,
And we are SP Film Viewers.
and today's episode for Monster March,
Woo!
we're reviewing both the original King Kong, 1933,
Oh!
and also the 2005 remake by Peter Jackson. So we'll kick things off with what you thought of the original.
I don't want to... Right. I'm trying to...
Pick your words carefully.
Yeah, I'm trying to tread carefully. I feel like I'm treading on eggshells already with what I might say. It's not a rubbish film, and for its time, it is probably, like you've said, it's a classic kind of film.
Yeah, product of the era that it was set in, and this basically saved the film studio, RKO Pictures, the Virgin on bankruptcy before this. So this picture.
So they decided to make a big gorilla.
Yeah.
Like, stop frame, isn't it?
Yes, stop motion, yeah.
Now, actually, it's not how they've made the film. That part really, really fascinates me, and it is really interesting.
Yeah, the technological side of how they did it for the time, that was revolutionary. As I say, it's something that hadn't been done, first of its kind of thing,
and it's obviously helped to lead other films come out. But I feel like it lacked content as such. Once we I actually enjoyed more the boat scene and the talking and that kind of part than when King Kong came along. I was like...
Which is really polar opposite of what it really should be, because people back then would say, oh, we've seen all this talking stuff before in our black and white movies, and then we've seen this amazing for the time.
Well, when I first saw King Kong, I just looked at you and were like, really?
Yeah, you're trying to cover a laugh, weren't you?
Yeah, what?
Especially with the close-up.
Well, it's like when his teeth were smiling, he was like, and it was like this weird smile, and like, I didn't seem to feel attached to any of the characters. I feel like the story...
Is that including the people as well?
I think the only kind of attachment you did get was for Anne, because you kind of got her background of her struggles. But then once she started screaming constantly, that kind of went out the window for me. It was like, I was just like, shut up. And I know it's like, it's dramatic. She's being carried through a jungle.
You being carried by a jungle, what you'd be like super duper calm, like, oh, come on, put me down.
But then it's you are right. I know you would be screaming your head off, you would, but there's a certain point where you must get exhausted from screaming when this gorilla's chucking you around everywhere.
But it's not only that, is it? There's other monsters and dinosaurs.
Yeah, there is. So, I think the content, I think they focused on more the action-packed, but after a bit it was just like, there's not much talking going on.
It sort of harks back to the silent films, so they just have an orchestral score. So, in a way, it's sort of like you don't need to have somebody talking to describe what's going on. You can see visually.
Yeah, you are right, you can. And referring to the new one, you don't have the talking really in that. But you do have it where it is, the action is kind of segmented. There is bits where it's kind of, you revert back to the story.
Are you saying, you mean in the pacing in the new one is more equal in measures than this?
It's like you had at the beginning storyline, then boom, action all the way till kind of the end of this woman just screaming her head off. That's all she did. She didn't have, I think the most lines she had would have said scream, scream, scream. You know, like on
script.
Yeah, that would literally be it.
I'd love to see that. Scream. Scream. Scream again.
And at the end, I was sick to death of the screaming, and it was like, and I know it is obviously, like you say, in a silent film, and it's not much, you can't really talk to the gorilla. I get that. But I didn't feel any connection with her and King Kong as I thought I would. Because what I was aware, because obviously I've come into this blind again, and what I was aware is that this gorilla loved this woman.
The theme behind it is like the beauty and the beast. The beast falls in love with the beauty, i.e. and the beautiful woman.
Yeah.
He's not encountered before, because being brown, he's been on an island where it's just been native sacrifices where it's something a bit different. I don't know.
They're called the golden-haired girl, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So it will be something new and shiny
Yeah.
to him, kind of thing. I know, obviously, because of the time of the film and obviously their restraints on things that they can and can't do. Like the emotion you can't portray as well.
No, you can't.
I think with the storyline, apart from him rescuing her from the other creatures, you won't really have realised how attached he was.
No, you realise how much he's putting himself in danger, really, because if it wasn't for her...
He wouldn't be put in this situation.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you kind of notice, really.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're trying to capture King Kong.
Yeah.
And it's not... It's any animal's cruelty, obviously, if it actually was a real animal. It is cruel, what they've done. But obviously, he has literally given this woman... I think, is it like a day that she's kind of been captured by him, it feels?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And... He's given her a tough ride, hasn't he, really? He's been chucking her up and down. Any normal human being would be dead by now. So when they capture King Kong, they only throw... Is it tear gas, kind of?
I think it's just some sort of gas canisters or something. It's just to put him to sleep, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, capturing someone is cruel, but he's just done that with Anne anyways for half a day. So I feel like it's a bit equal, and she's had a tougher ride than... kind of just being gassed out, so to speak. Even though I do think it's cruel, the aspect of bringing him to New York, it's not a place for him to be in, and they're just wanting to kind of exploit him and get the money's worth from this new find, in a sense.
Yeah.
So, obviously, they're then doing the reveal of King Kong.
To New York, yeah.
Yeah. And in this one, Anne is present. And she's with Jack.
Yep.
And I think it's a case of, it's one of those scenarios where you kind of a glutton for punishment, really. Because it's like, well, why temptate her being there? You know that's what King Kong's wanting.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to think it's going to go smoothly.
It's greed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just daft. And in the end, obviously, it all goes wrong. He then goes after Anne, and he ends up causing havoc through New York, and ends up...
He goes up the Empire State Building with it, the famous... Everybody sort of knows that scenario, yeah. And
sadly, in the end, it doesn't fare well for King Kong, does it really?
No.
I feel like she doesn't seem as upset, and her character isn't... It's a very 1930 kind of character. She, like when, oh yes, I'll go on this boat and I'll just, kind of a typical woman not having a voice and saying, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'm sorry, I'm a nuisance, I'm not in the way.
Yeah, again, for the product of its time being that kind of gender portrayal of how women were treated back then, and also there's racialness with some other things I know.
Oh yeah, there was,
yeah.
Definitely. But that did frustrate me a little bit because of how, like, oh, I've got to get married, I'll go on this boat because, I don't have any food and this man's going to look after me, and because of how I am and how I've been brought up and such, and the era I'm in, it's a bit like, gosh, woman, just get your stuff in order. You don't need all this, you don't need to be all yes man and everything like that. It just doesn't work like that. So I think I found it harder to gel, even though she was the most well-played character.
Oh, yeah, by far, yeah.
She had to put a lot of work in, probably, to do that. And I probably wasn't gone to notice back then, really. She was just a pretty face to put on the poster. Yeah. Pretty much. And that's what she was played as in the movie and probably in real life, really. Yeah. So that's probably... Because it's not that long. There's not that much that goes on, really, because of the restraints of, like, the filming and what they're wanting to do. It doesn't feel like there's much content in the story. The storyline, no, it's very, very basic. Yeah. It's a quick pacing compared to the new one, definitely by far. But interestingly enough, the studio actually wanted it to be like under 100 minutes. They didn't want it any longer, so they had to cut things out. I don't think that it needed to be any longer.
Right. Okay.
But I think the action wasn't gripping enough to make you feel like it was actually happening. That you needed something else to...
So what you're saying, the spectacle of the monsters fighting and everything else wasn't grabbing you?
No, and well, I just did, and King Kong himself, I just didn't really think
Anything other than the big
cheesy grin that was
dumb
like...
ape, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't seem scary, nor did it seem...
It would have been scarier for the folks back in 1933, definitely. I would have been a fly on the wall in that situation. Would be quite interesting to see how people would react.
Especially all the women. They'd be like, oh no! They'd probably start screaming as well.
Yeah. But in terms of the other effects that they've got going on, not just the stop motion, the way that they've composited the shots so that you can use what's called rear projection, so that you've got a layer on a layer and layer of stuff. So you've got some of it filmed in the studio, and then the rest of it that'll been filmed on another screen in a miniature form. That's how they did the things with Kong and the dinosaurs and everything in the background.
So it's like a film real negative and then another one in the back.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah,
just
so
like layers in like Photoshop or
yeah,
whatever. So you've got that going on.
Which I can imagine is time consuming, and I'm not taking away the fact of how long it will have taken, especially developing the film, making sure it's all laid up in the right sequence and the movements.
The movements, because that takes the longest by
and
far.
It's admirable to watch in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually are watching it to watch a movie and enjoy it, it is not as gripping as you would want.
What you want, I think.
What I would want from...
Yeah, your personally. Because it did, obviously, like, inspired Jackson as being one of his favourites.
Of course, yeah.
To make this one, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah, but obviously to improve as well.
Mm-hmm.
There is always...
yeah, it's always room for improvement, of course there is. That's the way that stop motion's been developed for in later films. You know, improving on the technique.
Refining
of the art.
it.
Yeah.
So, for the era it is... And I think even... it is a really good film, and the black and white doesn't take away from it. But...
Right, I did wonder if that was going to be a case.
I think he struggled to see it as some parts of the detail sometimes are lost, especially because I had to layer. So they didn't have a lot of white in... Yeah,
there was a lot of greys and...
and I think if you'd have had a bit of different toning to it,
well,
a bit of more contrast, it might have been a bit more eye-catching.
Yeah, but you...
Because you lose the action a little bit, I think, with it not being colour. And I know, obviously, that's nothing they can do about, because...
That's how it was filmed, yeah.
Yeah, that's all it had.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of can't see as much of what is happening because you're in a jungle, so it is going to be darker tones. And obviously your main character is dark because he's a gorilla. So it's not... Well, unless you're going to be a white gorilla. But did you get...
Yeah, I get where you come from. But to be fair, if you'd seen it on an old copy or back in the day, it'd be a lot more blurred and so it should be way more difficult to see what was going on. So I think Kat said lucky that you saw slightly higher definition. So
okay. So shall we go on to...
What, do you want to review that one or should we do it?
I think we should rate them both separately after so I can compare.
Okay.
So we'll review our next King Kong film, which you told me a quite insightful bit, which I wouldn't have probably recognised.
The fact of it being directed by Peter Jackson, who'd just come off his work on Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Which
explains why it's so long this one is compared to the 1930 one.
Yeah.
Like 3 hours, isn't it, I think, this one?
And a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Loves a good long film. But definitely when you said that... I didn't notice as much at the beginning when they were on the boat and such.
Yeah,
it's when they got to the island.
Yeah.
That's when...
You got the sense of certain tropes that he uses as a director, the way of using the camera and things like that.
Down to, and I don't know if this is linked in with him, but creation of your creatures and also the people on the island. Right. They reminded me of...
The orcs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be his sort of stylistic thing. It'll have some concept artist working on the stuff, but obviously, final word is kind of like his.
And the movement, was it like a...
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
know
a
how to-
weird, slow,
But fast.
yeah, like everything's slowed down, but yeah, no, it's. I
Yeah.
don't know what you call that camera.
No, because it's like
movement.
you kind of see them coming in slowly and then they're gone, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's like a blur. I don't know what you call that movement, but
I do think the people on the island on this one were a lot scarier for me. I was like, I wouldn't want to be held captive by them. So you did already get that sense of...
I think you get the sense of it being, because there's more time to play around with character development, there's a lot more of that going on.
Yeah, which I've noticed in a film, that is my main thing. Throw all the action you want. If you don't give me a character that I'm going to gel with, I'm not going to enjoy it as much. And I think, for me, I did enjoy this one a lot more because there was the character development with Kong and Anne.
Yeah, you had a whole sort of semi-backstory with her at the beginning, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like more of her struggles, like the aspiring actress who down on her luck kind of thing.
Yeah, and everyone was always leaving her and... Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that when she got offered this job this time, she wasn't so damsel in distress, like, oh yes, I'll straight away take it. She was like, well, kind of a little bit more like questioning.
Yeah.
Well, why and where are we going, kind of thing. But which I would be doing. So it kind of was more relatable to the fact she was more independent and kind of a bit more get-go, kind of could defend and look after herself. She didn't expect a man to look after her. But I actually kind of fell in love with the relationship of King Kong and Anne. That was my favourite part, was how once they'd kind of gone through the fact that she'd been given as a...
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was flinging her around for a bit until he kind of got bored and she was going to start trying to crawl away.
Yeah.
And then he realises she's gone and he gets her back again. And then there's this cute little part where she starts to do the dance.
Yeah, sort of like playing dead or whatever, just kind of styling him.
Yeah. And then then he starts to flicker, and it's like a toy. Like this gorilla is playing with this human toy that he doesn't realise, is gonna, like, if you carry on doing that, she will die, and then you'll be really upset. And there is one point where she tells him no and stop it now. I've had enough, kind of thing. And he does listen as well. He gets a bit...
Well, I think at that point
he has like a little toddler tantrum.
Yeah.
Basically. And he won't look at her. And it's like, that couldn't have happened in the other one. And I think this is a bit that I really, really loved. So you had that kind of connection. You also had... I forgot his character's name. Jack Black.
Oh, yeah. Carl Denham's, the filmmakers.
Oh, that was just... Initially when I saw he was casted as that, and obviously I'd kind of...
Known for more comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a bit hard to separate him from that kind of thing, but I kind of sort of look past that a little bit. I know he can semi-do sort of...
But I still feel like there was a comedy value to him.
Yeah, because he's a bit of, like trying to get it around people. And
my thoughts when I saw Jack Black as the movie director...
Yeah.
Comparing to the 1931...
Yeah.
Straight away I was like, well, this is not the same character in my head, because he can't be that character in the 1931, because that's just not who Jack Black in my head is.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So it's like... And as well, the character did change a lot.
His personality, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a hell of a lot more selfish.
Yeah.
In this one, and he didn't really care about anybody but himself and his camera.
Yeah. As you see throughout the film, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to let's take the equipment and get the best shots we can and stuff. And...
There is one point where, obviously, they're trying to go back and rescue Anne, and he's bringing his camera to get the best footage, like you said. And in the end, his camera takes a plummet, I think, to the...
Yeah, it's on the... It happens in the first one as well, where they're on the log and King Kong shakes them all off and they fall down this chasm.
Yeah.
And it gets destroyed. Yeah.
It gets destroyed, and that is the funniest moment for me, because it's like, well, you're so selfish, you deserve that. Why were you taking your camera in these tricky situations? I know it's like this amazing unknown thing and I must capture it, which is bizarre for me to say, why are you bringing your camera? Because I know I've studied photography, but A, I wouldn't want to damage my equipment like he did, and B, it's a case of, if I'm trying to run away from a big gorilla, the least thing I want on my back is this camera equipment.
Yeah.
So I did not gel. I always get this point in a movie where I really like one character and the relationship that's going on, and there's always one where I just despise, and he was the one for me.
Yeah.
So they've added more characterisation on top of the platform from the 1931 that they had. So the next part is obviously when they're trying to rescue Anne. Obviously they've smashed his camera and they're still trying to rescue Anne, but they leave Jack in the end, don't they, just to go and rescue Anne on his own.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, what I want to bring up is that how this character of Jack is sort of split between two characters in a way, because he's not the same Jack as he was in the first one.
No.
He's not like a sort of like seafaring, like, I say tough guy, but you know, like, I mean, kind of more sure of himself, where this guy's more of a screenwriter.
And you wouldn't think...
And the other guy's more the handsome...
actor.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think the screenwriter had any gumph in him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He doesn't really come across... doesn't really seem to work for them in a sort of chemistry way.
No, it don't at all. So that did throw me off a little bit as well, because they twisted it a little.
Yeah.
So he's a screenwriter that's a bit drippy looking, and not, your typical hero, handsome type, goes after Anne and rescues her, which is fine because obviously she needs to be going back home. That bit doesn't bother me because obviously it's no place for a human to live in that jungle, because there's so many other things like... Tribes
are living not in the jungle, but...
Well, exactly. End. That's why they've got the big gate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, King Kong rescues it from the dinosaurs. And
don't you think they look pretty good
for
the time?
Yeah. It is a lot better for the time. And the action, even though it didn't have any talking...
was more engaging. Because it's sort of like clever camera movements.
It was gripping.
Yeah. With the fights and everything. And...
Yeah, it does make you want to watch it. But then they did have bits where it's not just boom, boom, boom action. It kind of then... There would
Take a breather, yeah.
There'd be a bit of story would trickle in, and then it'd be boom, boom action again. It's the bit where they trick Jack and Anne in thinking, oh, well, we'll wait for them. But they're not actually waiting for them once Jack's rescued Anne from King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for King Kong because they think they can capture him.
Well, Carl, now that he's not got anything to film, to make a movie with, he's now, right, I'm going to selfishly get King Kong. That's his motive to further his story. Right, I'm going to capture the King Kong and take him to New York.
And get money, and going to pay for everybody who's died and family off, and it's like, well, you will literally have no money.
Yeah, he lost about 2 people. He repeats himself like, oh, the proceeds will go to...
And then,
he lost all his entire crew by the end of it, near enough, so...
Yeah, and somehow he still stayed alive. I would have not minded if he'd have died, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's got to stay true to the original.
True.
So they can't change that much, but the other ones are fairly disposable.
So this bit, I got quite upset when they did end up capturing
with the chloroform this time, yeah.
And it was the shooting, they were throwing, anchor at him.
Yeah, harpooning him, kind of thing.
And then putting a net over him, and you could just see...
the emotion in his face, yeah.
Oh, I was in a state, it was like, leave him alone, just let him stay there. Why are you trying to take him from his normal habitat? He's not done anything wrong. He's not hurt her or anything like that. Why are you now hurting him? And it really did kind of clutch my heartstrings, and it was like, this is cruel. It's horrible. I don't like it. And then that made me despise Jack Black's character even more. I was like, I do not like you now because you're just horrible. You're just in it for your own gain, and you don't care who you hurt or who you step on to get where you get to. And nobody's going to get far in life if they do that.
No.
Or if they do, they'll have loads of money but be very lonely. So they end up being able to bring him back to New York. However, this time, well, it's cleverly done, isn't it?
Yeah, the way they do it is make you think it's her when they do recreate the ritual of, which again you point out it was similar to the first one with the way that they're in the costumes and all the stuff, to sort of like a little homage to the original.
Yeah.
Film.
And they did have certain things within the film that were yeah.
But anyway.
Well, she was getting ready as well in another studio. Yeah. Because she was actually starring in another play.
Yeah.
However, the way that they filmed it made it look like she was actually going to be...
Yeah, involved. Like we think that she's going to be, yeah.
But she'd blankly refused, basically, that she wanted to be any part of it, which is obviously a point to Anne, because it's like, well, she can see what is going on and she knows it's wrong. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the previous one, I don't really think...
Yeah.
She was kind of a bit more, like, delusional and...
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one had a bit more sass to her. And basically, they've, like you said, they're recapturing where they've tied King Kong up.
Yeah.
And they put this fake Anne in front of King Kong.
Yeah.
And he's not daft. He knows it's not Anne. Yeah. And he gets kind of a bit annoyed, I think, at the fact that...
Yeah, and they're taking pictures again at this point, like they did in the other worry. That's kind of what triggered him in the first one, but it's, again, more the annoyance of, like, oh God, he's startling me.
And as well, you just kind of taking me as a joke, in a sense. Putting somebody in front of me who I'm not actually even interested in. And so he gets unchained, and then he sees Jack at one point.
Yeah, and he's gone on his rampage and kind of just like focuses.
Yeah, and he's like, hate for this man because he's like, you stole my woman. That's what it feels like. Yeah. So he's kind of wrecking up New York as he goes along, but Jack's trying to get rid of King Kong, trying to take him away from
the centre.
Yeah. And there's a scene where Anne, I think she can hear like the...
No, I think she comes. She must hear like the sirens or something coming after the performance. And then she sees there's like a poster on the floor or something that she sees, kind of like King Kong at the whatever theatre. And it's like, oh right, okay, that's what this must be all about. So she heads out that way, and that's how when she sees him.
And that's the loveliest scene. Yeah. Out of it all, I think. Yeah. I'd just fast forward just to watch that bit again, because it was just lovely. Yeah. And I think it was so poignant. Like, he had this lovely, lovely moment with Anne, and it was quite sweet because, bless him, it was snowy, so I liked the fact that they'd added that in. So once he was kind of causing havoc, it was slipping everywhere. But then when he was with Anne, and she calms him down.
Yeah, they go to the lake in Central Park, I presume.
Yeah, and there's obviously Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And they end up like kind of where he's like playing on the ice. Yeah. And she's so relaxed and calm. She's not screaming or anything like that. And you can see that they actually do care for one another. She cares for his well-being just as much as he cares for her. Yeah. And until somebody has to come along and ruin it. Yeah. So then obviously...
Then he's climbing up the building.
Yeah.
Best day again.
But that is kind of... I feel like that's stretched out a bit more as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of this where... Sorry to cut you off your points or whatever, but I feel like some of that, the final part, could have been cut down a little bit. Certainly a big chunk of actually getting to the island could have been cut. Didn't need all that, to be fair, and it would have been, I don't think you would have lost a great deal. It would have been a short movie and probably a bit better for it, but that's just...
I agree. I think it would be, you didn't need, where you wanted that more content in the 1931, you didn't need all of it in the newer one. Yeah. I think you needed like a bit of a happy medium in between. Would have worked well, but you needed the characterisation that they did bring.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, obviously they're up on the Empire State Building, and it melted my heart. It made me want... I cried, didn't I? Yeah. Because I'm a softie, and I could feel the connection between the gorilla and Anne, and he was in pain, and the aeroplanes were coming to get him and were shooting him, and he'd kind of isolated himself up there, whereas if it had been down on the ground.
Still would have shot him at him.
But it was harder. He could have got away and such, and there'd been other people in the way, whereas it was like a target.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And there was one point where she's trying to tell him, bless her, she's trying to save him. The amount of times he's rescued her, she's now trying to rescue him.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a good moment, isn't it? Yeah.
She doesn't, bless her, she doesn't succeed, but she does try.
Yeah.
And obviously they can't see how tiny she is when she's trying to wave them off. I
think, you know what, thing about what might have been a nicer way of ending it was if when she did the whole waving, like stop, and then the planes just fly off, like, oh, we're not going to shoot anymore. And then just have it that because Kong's already suffered the wounds that he's had from the thing, you kind of just have that moment, and then he just falls off, rather than him being shot in the back again and then going, right, oh, I'm going to die now.
Yeah.
I think that would probably made it a bit more.
It'd have been a more poignant moment, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because you would have thought, well, at least she's tried her hardest.
Yeah.
There was nothing she could do.
No.
But it was still, it felt he'd been killed more in spite.
Yeah.
In a sense, because they were going to come after him anyways. It didn't matter what she did.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way around that.
Yeah. And...
I knew how it was going to end, but...
and I'm glad I did, because I think if I didn't know how it was going to end, I would have bawled my eyes out. So I'm glad we watched the 1931. Yeah. But I didn't feel that connection... With the other one, and I didn't cry. I didn't...
There was another part, I don't know if you clocked on it, when they're first on Skull Island and there's the sunset and Anne goes like...
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And then Kong, later when he's in the top of the tower, he does the same thing, so it's kind of, because he understands. Yeah, it's nice, poignant.
And and I think that makes it... Animals are like that. They do.
Yeah, they do understand. Yeah,
they do understand, and they are human and creatures themselves, and they have feelings.
Yeah,
and I think that's the bit when they could connect with that you realise, well, actually, you are hurting him when you're shooting him. You are causing him pain, and nobody deserves that pain, really. And I think because it's a creature, I feel like
they can't.
They can't defend themselves, can they?
Yeah.
Really. And I think I'm an animal person by far. So it's like, I'm gonna put it like, let's say there was a court judgment and it was like between a cat and a human, I would side with the cat 100%.
Okay.
I would. It'd be like, well, that human is just definitely cruel.
Yeah, the cat doesn't know what it's doing, or just not culpable for his actions or whatever.
But then they have a kind nature. They're not. Yeah. None of it is meant out of malice, where a human can be so malice, like to the fact of, oh, okay, well, ease off with the aeroplanes and then boom, 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 shot you in the back.
Yeah.
And it's like, an animal wouldn't do that. So, I think that's what it was when you did do the beautiful part, and then him obviously ending up falling off. That annoyed me. Then when all the people were coming in going, oh, let's take a picture of King Kong. And it's like, leave him alone. He's just had a really traumatic time. Now he's standing on him. And it was just like...
No
so
respect.
ignorant of... Yeah. So that did frustrate me.
Yeah. But again, even though it's not... Obviously it's a 2005 film, it's still encapsulating how things would have been. Oh, wow, look at the spectacle that we've kind of done from the 30s era.
I think that would happen nowadays anyways.
No, people would be doing selfies.
Oh, it'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, which would be worse.
Yeah, and you'd have your paparazzi and it being on every newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think that kind of covered...
your thoughts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we get on to rating the films? Start with the bold one.
Oh, that's going to be the hardest one. Because of what I've seen after 1931, it's obviously making it more difficult to mark it, because obviously you can see the development and the progression that has come out of that film.
Yeah. Which
obviously shows that the film storyline was a good content. However, you
feel like it needed more development.
Yeah, and which it did come out in the newer King Kong that we saw. Obviously, I have to bear in mind that they had those restrictions.
Yep.
And it's not one of those films that is completely poor. It would be one of those where if you had to ask me which one to watch.
Yeah, which one you'd watch? Again, you'd pick the new one, I assume.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would. Downright, I would.
Okay.
And that would be it. But would I put myself through it again? Probably not, because I'd cry again.
Right, okay.
So it's like, unless I wanted to cry.
If you wanted to see, you could, not condoning skipping through things as such, but fast forward those bits and then enjoy the rest of the rest of it that goes on. Then
you could make your own shorter version of it.
Abridged version, yeah.
Yeah. Mine would end with the lovely scene in the snow.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Then it won't go any further.
Right, so, but mark it on its technical aspect of what was as well into consideration. I'm not saying.
I hope you're not going to be disheartened with what I'm going to score.
Okay.
I think I'm being fair.
Right.
I'd probably say like a 6.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah.
Because obviously you haven't got the content, but it's more the amazing skill behind it.
Yeah.
That I'm marking it, really. I wouldn't probably go, oh, I must rewatch that. I wouldn't, but I'm glad I watched it for understanding how it worked, and because obviously I've done photography and you've done animation.
Yeah.
It's a key thing for us to be quite interested in how things are worked in the background. And that interests me more than actually the film.
Okay. I'd score it a little bit higher than that. Mainly for the fact of how much I enjoy monster movies and stuff, and this is sort of like the pioneer of the whole genre in a sense. There is more going on with the Peter Jackson one, obviously. Longer content and the visuals and stuff, but without the original King Kong, we wouldn't have a lot of the movies we have today. No,
you are right in that sense. You are.
And the art of the whole stop motion thing interests me greatly. I can appreciate that quite a lot, and all the technical aspects that have gone into the filmmaking for that era. So I'd rate it an 8 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind, I'm also thinking of what I'm going to be rating the newer film as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm really interested to see if you're going to be rating them the same or not.
I'll tell you now. Yeah, it is an 8, but it's going to be for different reasons.
Right.
In the sense of what the other one brings to it, the low points being a bit too long, a bit bloated, can be cut down a little bit. Visuals of the thing, can't fault it too much, especially for what coming out of Lord of the Rings era. Just after that, there's a lot more depth to the characters, more emotion with Kong himself. I sort of rate them equally, in the sense, I know this might sound a bit daft in the way of my rating, but that's how I feel about it. But
no, it's interesting
yours now.
Because I was going to go an 8 for the newer King Kong, and that's why I only rated the other one a little bit lower, was because of what development I've seen to create something from the basis of that platform. I think the reason why I've scored this one higher personally for me was because it did make me feel emotion, and it made me cry, and I could kind of get that emotion from this one. Yeah. I think it lacked a little bit in the 1930s, but obviously that's due to obviously being advanced in technology and the different era that it's being done in. It is a little bit long-winded. It doesn't need to be as long. Yeah. And there is bits where you can cut it out and it would still be a really good film. But I think the visuals are brilliant, and I think because it caught my heartstrings, that's why my score is higher, because I do like a good characterisation. That's the bit that draws me in. If I can fall in love with the character, then I'm hooked. Yeah, good. Pretty much. So, not saying that the 1930 is just scrap that completely. Don't watch it. Yeah. Watch it more.
It's a good frame of reference, I'd say, for how far we've come. Basically. Yeah. Like it's like like a time capsule of like how things have and now how we've progressed so much more.
It feels like a little history lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this is where it all began. Yeah.
And I like that, and I like the fact that I've seen both. Yeah. And I do because we were on about should we just watch one of them. Yeah. And I was like, no, can I see?
Yeah, I don't think you'd be best pleased if you'd just seen the black and white one.
No, I don't think.
I'm kind of glad that we decided what we did.
Yeah, I am definitely glad, because I didn't know how I was going to feel about King Kong, really. And I didn't think I was going to cry, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because normally when we watch these action-packed films, I don't really seem to get too emotional. Yeah. It felt a little bit like a romance movie, a little bit between King Kong and Ant, and...
Yeah, different elements to it.
Yeah, it had different variations to the story, which you wouldn't have if you didn't have the platform. So I think definitely watch the first one for history value, and the way that they speak. I love that. The way they're so posh and speak quite... It's fast, but it's posh fast.
Like, say, what's the big idea? Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's again something that's how it was back then.
And I do like that. That's why I think I was more intrigued when they were talking, because I was like really enjoying that aspect of that era.
You're probably the only person who enjoyed the character dialogue rather than the actual stuff. But there you go. So thank you for giving your thoughts on that.
You're welcome. I'm sorry that I rated it a little bit lower, but
no, I understand where you're coming from, but
good.
But at least it wasn't like a 2 or something.
Oh no, it's still not one of the worst films I've seen.
No,
that's for sure.
Borat was.
Oh yeah, that's still.
Yeah. So far, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, cause it is Monster March, what have you got in store for me?
So I thought for next time, as Bong Joon-ho is quite popular at this point, and we've seen Parasite recently, I thought it'd be good to show you his take on sort of like a monster movie.
Yeah.
It's called The Host.
I'm not sure what that can be yet. I'm trying to think of what creature it is.
Well, you'll find out next time.
Okay.
On SP Film Viewers.
So, thank you for listening to my thoughts and Paul's thoughts a little bit as well, which has been nice for you to add what you're thinking of the making of the film and such.
Try my best.
Yeah, you do. And tune in to hear what my views are on The Host. I do not have a clue what this film is about. Just like any other normal film review. I go into really it blind.
Yeah. I think you'll enjoy it, really.
I hope so.
Yeah. So don't forget to follow us on the social media platforms. Simply search SP Film Viewers on Instagram and Twitter. And you can listen to us on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever else you might get your podcasts from. So be sure to leave a like, give us a follow, all that good stuff. And you'll hear from us in a week's time. So it's goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now. Thank you again.
Okay, bye.
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 Bye.